everyone talks about the rookie quarterbacks in training camp, but what about some other under-the-radar quarterback battles around the NFL? We're going to dive into those on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll, baby.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Can you smell that, folks? It's football right around the corner. We'll have training camps kicking off this weekend, next week. It's a very exciting time. We got an exciting show for you guys today. We're going to talk about some under-the-radar quarterback battles, dive into the discussion around paying Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, and then it's not Alex's mystery segment this week. It is Tyler's mystery segment. Speaking of that, I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert from the Locked On Titans podcast at Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. Here with my co-host, Alex Clancy, local expert for the Arizona Cardinals on Locked On Cardinals at Clancy's Corner on Twitter. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, NFL content all year round on all apps, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On NFL podcast. Also, shout out to our everydayers out there. Let us know down below if you're an everydayer listening to the show each day, all week. We couldn't do it without you guys. Thank you very much. But with that being said, Alex, everybody talks about the rookie quarterbacks. They talk about, Anthony Richardson against Gardner Minshew, Davis Longneck Mills against CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Andy Dalton. I mean, there's some decent veterans there with those guys, but that conversation has been had, and we're going to see it play out in training camp. There are a few quarterback battles around the NFL that no one is talking about enough. We're going to start in San Francisco. Alex, I ask you this question. Healthy Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, Trey Lance. Who are you starting in that scenario if you're San Francisco? Are you giving up on Lance, going with the 7th round pick? Are you going with the former number 1 pick or first round pick that could still have some juice to him? Who would you go with if you were San Francisco?
Trey Lance. I don't really So Sam Darnold can win you a couple games if everybody else is hurt on the planet. And we've seen that he's done that. I think Carolina started 3-0 last year with him. Was that last year? They were one of the talks of the town early on with Sam Darnold rushing touchdowns, throwing the ball all over the field, and then he turned into Sam Darnold. Brock Purdy needs an Alex Smith manicured offense around him. 49ers fans will know exactly what I'm talking about. Jim Harbaugh resurrected Alex Smith's career with 7 pass plays. That's what he did. And then he made him a whole lot of money with Kansas City and onward and upward. Trey Lance unlocks that offense like the other two cannot even dream of. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, down the field, Christian McCaffrey. Trey Lance is a fantastic athlete. When he plays, he's played well over the handful of games that he's played. And I feel like if Trey Lance's ceiling is somewhat close to being reached, they're a Super Bowl favorite. Brock Purdy, there's still such a question mark around Brock Purdy. I don't understand why it's like give him the key to the city of San Francisco after playing 8 games. It doesn't matter to me. Do it again. It's Mitchell Trubisky in North Carolina. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't rest everything on the shoulders of Brock Purdy. I don't care where he was drafted. I would start Trey Lance if healthy.
That's, you know what? That is a take. I got to tell you, in my rankings, Trey Lance would be 3rd. I would go with Brock Purdy. Well, I would go with Brock Purdy because you know that with Brock Purdy, you can get to the NFC Championship game. He's shown that already, that he can get you there. And he got hurt last year in the NFC Championship game. Otherwise, who knows? Maybe they win that game. I don't think so. I'd still take the Eagles, but it at least would have been more interesting to watch play out. Yeah. I think that with the tutelage of Kyle Shanahan, I think that Sam Darnold will be better than Trey. I think that Sam Darnold could be their quarterback going forward by the end of the season. I think that Sam Darnold has a ton of talent. He's been in some tough situations in New York and then Carolina. This is by far the best situation that a quarterback could go into with Shanahan and the weapons and the offensive line that they have. So I think that Darnold's talent may trump all the other talent in the room. I just think that Trey Lance is the least reliable I think that San Francisco is in a position with their roster. Yeah,
health-wise reliable?
And he's played less football than the other two guys at this point. I mean, Brock Purdy just playing at the end of the season last year has almost played as much NFL football as Trey Lance. So I just think that while Trey Lance it's boom or bust. If they hit on Trey Lance, you are 100% right. He does have the highest ceiling of any of those quarterbacks. But if they don't, I think that he could hurt the team the most and set them back in a way that they can't get to their heights next year. But either way, I think that's a very interesting argument on both sides. I do want to look at some other quarterback battles that are going on as well. And the next one I want to bring up is maybe just a hot take from me, but the New England Patriots, Mac Jones against Bailey Zappi. Last year, Zappi played about just as well as Mac Jones, if not better, when he got to play football. Do you think there is any way that Bill Belichick would say, I don't like this Mac Jones guy anyways, Zappi is the guy that I like more, and go with Bailey Zappi to start the season?
No. I think this is going to be the coming out party for Mac Jones this year. You know, it's hard when rookies perform above what you expect them to do early on, and then you expect it just to be that. Rookies struggle. You know, and Mac Jones struggled. Their offense was terrible. It was give the ball to Ramondre Stevenson, give the ball to Damian Harris, and then kind of figure it out after that. Jacoby Myers had a sweet year, and they have other weapons there, but I feel like this year is going to be Mac Jones is like, okay, I get it. The game slowed down. Let's go. And it's funny we talk about them right after we talk about San Francisco, where Kyle Shanahan was rumored to want Mac Jones to move up to get Mac Jones at 3, and then it ended up falling in the lap of New England. I don't think that this should be close, and just like I don't think the Trey Lance thing should be close, they traded 2 first-round picks for Trey Lance. That comes with it. They drafted Mac Jones in the first round. He was everything at Alabama. You start the kid.
All I'll say about that is this. I agree with you that this is like an answers season for Mac Jones. I just see it the other way. I think this will be the last year that people can even pretend that Mac Jones is a difference maker at quarterback and that he isn't just Gardner Minshew. He's just Gardner Minshew from Alabama, in my opinion. I don't think Mac Jones is very good at football at all. I don't think he's one of the top half quarterbacks in the league. I think that he'll be washed out soon and he'll be on the backup quarterback trajectory. He'll probably end up in San Francisco at some point because they'll just give him a shot and see what happens. Not a believer in Mac Jones whatsoever. I don't think Bill Belichick is either. I agree with you. They'll start him to start the season, but I would not be shocked at all if Zappi is the one starting by the end of the year because personally, I just don't think Mac Jones is very good. I don't buy it at all. If he played anywhere other than Alabama, he would never have been taken in the first 3 rounds. So I don't see the talent or the upside with Mac Jones. But the last situation that we're going to look at, and we'll go quickly here, Tampa Bay, Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield. Who are you playing?
I'm a light Baker Mayfield true there also. Jared Goff, Taylor Heineke, Baker Mayfield. And the reason why Baker Mayfield is because he's a leader. Yeah, he's obnoxious at times. I feel like he's calmed down a lot after his first couple of years in Cleveland. He said to himself he needed to grow up a little bit. I mean, look at what he did in LA on a short week, brought them back against the Rams, first game with the team after only being with them for 72 hours. That's Baker Mayfield. Sure, his ceiling is a lot lower than other starting quarterbacks, but he is a leader of whatever team he is quarterbacking for. And what they need in Tampa Bay is some sort of stabilizing force after Tom Brady's been gone. And Kyle Trask had a great year in Florida. You can thank Kyle Pitts for that, his last year in Florida. But I think it's Baker Mayfield. You wouldn't assign him if you're not going to start him.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I disagree with your outcome. I start Kyle Trask because I do think Baker Mayfield may get you to 6 wins, 7 wins, something like that. And that is not what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need. Right. They need to play Kyle Trask. They need him to be awful. They need to get Caleb Williams or Drake May, and that needs to be their focus. So you're right, but I don't agree. You know what I mean? But with that being said, we are going to move forward. We are going to dive into this running back conversation a little bit. I know it's been talked about throughout the week, but at the end of the day, it is the biggest story in the NFL. So we're going to dive into that in just a moment. Before we get into it, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long, whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire. Every week, we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So with draft prep underway for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. If you are looking to make a smooth turn in your fantasy football snake drafts with the last pick in the first round and the first pick in the second round, then you need to guarantee that you're going to get two of the surest performers, and you can do that by going with an all AFC West combo with Raiders wide receiver Devontae Adams and Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Adams has proved that he remains a reliable top option in Las Vegas, while Mahomes will operate once again with both the highest floor and the highest ceiling among any quarterback at the position. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, and it's the same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, over 122 million parts and accessories right at your fingertips, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it, and they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating it if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you'll know that you'll always be set up for success from the get-go with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Everything your vehicle needs is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, all you got to do is look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, football fans, let's dive back into a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. And yes, I am fired up for the season. I know Alex is as well, but two players who may not be as fired up for the season are Raiders running back Josh Jacobs and Giants running back Saquon Barkley. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the philosophical conversation around paying running backs, this and that. But Alex kind of putting that, I guess you can't really put it aside as part of the discussion, but just zoning in on these teams and their players. Start with Josh Jacobs. If you were the Raiders, would you have paid Josh Jacobs a long-term deal worth over $10 million a season?
No. So the reason why, not because he's a running back, not because of anything else, not because of anything off the field, whatever. He only did it for 1 year. He's been very, very average. But you go back and forth with this, because this is the first time Josh McDaniels has had his hands on him, and this is what Josh McDaniels does. Josh McDaniels has elite running back rooms. I mean, he made Brandon Bolden a 12-year NFL player or whatever it was. I mean, it doesn't matter. Jonas Gray, like you go down the list of running backs in New England, a lot of them still aren't in the league anymore because they left Josh McDaniels' system. So with that, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, well, he hasn't done it, but the team's been terrible. And now you finally get a guy who can have a run scheme and look at what you can do to maximize, especially with the offensive line blocking schemes, etc. Would you have paid him? Would I have paid him? No. If he does it again this year, will you pay him as pay it backwards, as it were? Yeah, I'd give him a 2-year, $20 million for, with 15 guaranteed to say thank you for playing on the franchise tag this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And your initial point out of the gate, I just couldn't agree with it more. To me, we can have this conversation about running backs, but Josh Jacobs is not one of the running backs you pay if you pay running backs. You know what I mean? Like, to me, Josh Jacobs shouldn't even be in this discussion when we talk about running backs not getting their just due and not getting what they're worth. Josh Jacobs had played 13 games his rookie season, had a good year, 1,150 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good season. But after that, 15 games, only 1,000 yards. Did have 12 touchdowns, though, in 2020. Made the Pro Bowl, a decent season. But 2021, 15 games, only 872 yards. The Raiders are not in a position with their roster to pay a running back who's been up and down. Like, this isn't elite running back production throughout his career. Yes, last year on 340 carries, I mean, that's 70 more than his second year in the league, which was his highest carry total to that point. So 1,653 yards, 12 touchdowns last year, played all 17 games. But I'm sorry, Josh Jacobs has just not shown the versatility in his career. He hasn't shown the explosion in his career. He's a grinder who grinds it out with a bunch of carries. And I'm sorry, that kind of guy is going to wear down quicker. Like, Josh Jacobs is not the talent level of a Derrick Henry, a Christian McCaffrey, even a Saquon Barkley. You know what I mean? He's not that. So for me, I'm with you. I'm not paying Josh Jacobs. And it's not because he's a running back in the running back conversation. Simply, Josh Jacobs just isn't worth more than the franchise tag or worth a long-term deal. He's not at that level of talent in terms of running backs. Now, Saquon is a little different. The injury issues with Saquon obviously are probably the holdup for the Giants there. They're just not certain that he's going to stay healthy. I mean, you look at games played, 16, then 13, 2, 13, 16. So I can understand why there's some trepidation there. But at the end of the day, Saquon Barkley is an incredible talent. And I think, and we're going to talk about this maybe in a little bit, that having the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and be a factor in the passing game is going to be the most important qualifier for running backs to get paid going forward. And I think that Saquon Barkley does both. Now, with the injury issues, I agree. They shouldn't have paid him. They shouldn't give him a long-term deal. But as opposed to Jacobs, like you mentioned with Jacobs, a 2-year deal, $15 million guaranteed to give him a little something. I think that the Giants should have done that now. I don't think you give him the Zeke 5-year, $90 million, but I do think that the Giants should have found a way to give Saquon 2 years, $20 million. Like, the Titans are an example with what they did with Derrick Henry. The franchise tag was like $10.6 million or something that season, close to 12. The Titans just said, hey, we're going to give you a 2-year deal, $25 million, all of it guaranteed. Well, it was a 4-year deal, $50 million, but the guarantees were 2-year, $25 million. Basically, we're going to franchise tag you 2 years in a row, but give you the security of knowing that you're getting that money up front. Okay? That's what the Giants should have done with Saquon Barkley. The big mistake, in my opinion, is paying Daniel Jones the amount that they paid Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones could have been paid $10 million less, and then they could have had money for Saquon Barkley to fit in. So, to me, that's the way that I see it. Barkley is different than Jacobs, but would I give them a 4 or 5-year deal with anything more than a couple seasons of guaranteed money? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Saquon Barkley's got a couple tough things going against him. One, the history of paying running backs, because he's the perfect guy that you would give Todd Gurley money to, Alvin Kamara money to, Christian McCaffrey money to, probably not Zeke, because that's Jerry Jones just being an egomaniac saying, I'm right. But the Todd Gurley one was the first one where it's like, whoops. What did Stan Kroenke do? And then it was kind of down the list. The other thing he has going against him is that the Giants' offense has been awful ever since he got drafted. So there's no real showing of how great he could be with a functional offense. And now with Daniel Jones getting paid, if this franchise tag does, like, so say they don't make the playoffs this year, Saquon's like, I'm gone. And he'll get 3 years, $30 million with $15 million guaranteed. He's still pretty young, and he can do everything in the dictionary that a running back should be able to do in this day and age. So he'll just pick his next team. He'll go to a good offense, and he'll flourish on the tail end of his career instead of the beginning, because he has been held prisoner in East Rutherford at MetLife Stadium with the Giants offense. They've been so bad, and it doesn't matter. And now with Daniel Jones being the star, they're going to throw the ball more than they should. They're not going to give the ball to Saquon Barkley as much. This is just how it works with bad organizations offensively. And that's kind of, he's been in kind of this purgatory of not only bad contracts to other players, but also, just being on a bad offensive team. And sure, he has some hand in that. He tore his ACL when he only played 2 games a couple years ago. But this isn't 15 years ago. Yeah. Players come back from that. And I feel like if it's injury concerns, nobody should get paid in the NFL. Everybody's got some sort of injury at some sort of time, or you're taking time bombs where it could potentially happen, even though we never hope that happens. So with Saquon, I feel like it's just brighter for him for the future. Josh Jacobs may be in trouble unless he leads the league in rushing again this year, which, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna doubt that, but I agree. I think Barkley has more in the tank going forward than Jacobs does in terms of his explosiveness and being a game breaker. But with that being said, it is time for Tyler's mystery segment. Alex has no idea what we're going to talk about, and neither do all of you listeners either. So excited to dive into it in just a second. Alex, Normally you bring us in the third segment, but this is a hostile takeover. Tyler's mystery segment is what we're doing rather than Alex's mystery segment.
It's about
so very excited for that. It is about football. Sadly, it is about football. I know that we could talk about the Bear. We could get into a bunch of different, but we'll keep it to football. But before we do, thank you guys for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, daily NFL content all year round on all apps, always for free. Make sure you stay subscribed to the Locked On NFL podcast. Tomorrow on Friday, you have your boy Q, Chris Carter, breaking down all of the latest in the NFL, having some fun conversations. So make sure that you don't miss that. Some technical issues here with Alex off screen. So we are going to continue the show with just me, and I'm going to dive into my mystery segment with you guys. So in lieu of having Alex to bounce this off of, you guys let me know down below whether you think I'm crazy or not, because I could be. This is something that I talked about on my show earlier this week, the Locked On Titans podcast, and I thought it was just a generally interesting conversation. But will the running back position, like the fullback position, cease to exist soon? I think there's a chance that we could look up in 20 years and there are no running backs. Just like how there used to be a ton of fullbacks in the NFL, but now you have Kyle Juszczyk in San Francisco, and that's about it. I mean, at the end of the day, that is about the only true fullback that you see in the NFL on a consistent basis. Now, I think you could maybe add in let's say Patrick Ricard from the Ravens. But even Ricard is used in some tight end situations now because they need to find a way to add more versatility to the fullback, because being a fullback alone is not enough to keep you on the roster. You have to do other things. I think that there is a chance that in the future, a guy like Taysom Hill is the primary ball carrier on running plays. We look at a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson. Look at a guy like Deebo Samuel, for example. These guys have shown that they have the ability to run the ball as well, not just be a wide receiver and catch it out of the backfield. I would say from a Titans standpoint, you look at a guy like Jonnu Smith, who went from the Titans to the Patriots, now with the Falcons. He's been given the ball on pitches and toss sweeps throughout his career because he has the skill set to run the ball. You know what I mean? So I think that there is a chance that if we go back or we go forward into the future in 10, 20 years, you don't have running backs. You have more versatile tight ends. You have more versatile wide receivers. Like, rather than having a designated running back, and that's an actual position, you would have the third or fourth wide receiver on your depth chart be a guy who takes carries, along with the third or fourth or second tight end that you have who takes carries. And what you do is you just kind of rotate those guys. And when you need to run the football, you hand it off to one of those guys. Not even that, but look at the proliferation of running quarterbacks, mobile quarterbacks, and not just mobile quarterbacks, literally running quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Josh Allen. Cam Newton kind of sparked all this. I mean, there were guys before him. You could say Mike Vick, but using your quarterback in red zone power, using your quarterback on a quarterback counter power run play, like all that stuff, Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Josh Allen. Again, you're seeing more of that. And now we get Anthony Richardson into the fold. I think that a combination of tight end, quarterback, and wide receiver could do the job that running backs do now. And as I said on Twitter at Tic Tac Titans, and I said on my show yesterday at Locked On Titans, or Locked On Titans podcast, I don't think that it's insane that running backs are going to get what they ask for. Like Derrick Henry said on Twitter earlier this week, just take the running back position out of the game then. Are you sure you want that? Are you sure? So just something interesting that I've been thinking about. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but running backs just need to be careful what they wish for because they just might get it. So with that being said, that is going to do it for me and sort of do it for Alex here on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Again, make sure that you're back on Friday for your boy Q and Chris Carter breaking it all down. Football fans, it's Thursday. Start your weekend early and stay safe out there.